Hello, welcome to this episode of Cut It Short, uh, which is happening after a long gap, mainly because of Corona. But the new subject that I found, which was on my mind for quite some time, was American election process. And as we hear more and more about Donald Trump and all the tactics he's applying now to get re-elected, this rung a bell in my mind that this was one topic that I missed out to cover. American election process per se know has been my one subject that has always puzzled me in every way. I had never understood it fully. There was always an element of doubt and unclarity on some part of it, that how did it happen, like in the last election, Hillary Clinton won popular vote, but Donald Trump became the president. This was a very puzzling part, or the one missing element in the process, that we, at least India side, and many others who follow rule of majority, they don't understand this whole concept of American election. So I had always thought of doing a episode on this, but because of lack of clarity and lack of information in a very easy to understand manner, uh, I had never understood this, and I could not have a courage of making an episode on this. But luckily, I found a piece of information, or critical inputs from Dr. Anil Joshi, who is my friend, who explained this to me in a very easy to understand manner. So the loop was complete. So that is how it prompted me to make this episode. Now this I am going to make in two parts. First part, I will cover the basic foundation of American election, which I will cover the parties, and in the second part I will cover the electoral process, which is the most complicated part of this whole election process. So we'll come to the basic part, which is about the parties in America, those who fight the elections. Unlike India, in India we have so many parties. We have more than maybe 60 parties, or even more than that. And whereas in America there are only two parties. One is Republican Party, and there is Democratic Party. And of course there are independent candidates who can fight the election, but such instances are very far and few. Maybe except Ross Perot, I don't remember any other person who has fought election as an independent candidate for president. So all along it has been a fight between two parties. So first we'll come to the symbol of the party. This Democrats, which is Mr. Obama, Barack Obama, comes from that party. The Democrat Party's symbol is donkey. Now, there is a very funny anecdote about this symbol. In 1828, there was this candidate called Andrew Jackson, who was a Democrat, and he was fighting a presidential election against Quincy Adams in 1828. He was called by his opponents as the jackass, basically, which means a stupid person in English. So this the whole campaign was done at a very low level. All sort of people calling names to their opponents. That was the hallmark of this election. So even in on this aspect, you can say that America is 100 years ahead of India in terms of standard of campaign, that they stoop down to this such a low level. So what he did was he turned it on its upside down. This argument that he is a jackass, it means he's a stupid fellow. He said, I am going to make ass, which is donkey, as my symbol, which symbolizes hard work, persistence, that he is always loyal to his owners. So he made ass or a donkey as his symbol for the party, and he fought that election. and he won it. So that is how Democrats, they continued with this symbol of donkey. Now, incidentally, this Andrew Jackson is the same guy whom I mentioned in my episode number 1 about the impeachment. He was the first president of America who was who was about to be impeached. The process was started, impeachment process was started on Andrew Jackson, and he survived by one vote. So I had mentioned this about this, unique aspect of Andrew Jackson. But of course, he survived. So he was the first one who got this symbol of donkey for Democrats. Now we'll come to the basic difference between Democrats and Republicans, because for outsiders, especially for Indians and even for the non-Americans, it's very confusing. I mean, what do they stand for? What are their values and principles as a party? So, in India, like we have BJP or Bharatiya Janata Party, or we have Congress, or we have communist, we have socialist, we have leftist, which are very easy to understand. That what are they stand? What do they stand for? What are they fighting for? Whereas in America, it is very difficult to for an outsider to understand what does Republican stand for and what does Democrat stand for. So I will first cover this aspect in this episode, and then I will come to the critical part in the second episode. So I'll start with Republicans. Republicans, for them, the most important part, very close to their heart, number one point, is the gun, that right to bear arm on body, while they are in public or anywhere, or to possess arms and ammunition is their fundamental right. It is very, very important to a Republican. So this is the first thing which is a trait of a Republican. Second thing, being religious. Republicans are very religious people. They go to Sunday mass, they go to church, they pray before having their dinner, and this is also a very important part of their life. They are not atheist, they are very religious people. And 70% of Republicans are Mormons. It's another sect within the Christianity called Mormons. This is different than being Catholic. Just to tell you the difference between Catholic and Mormons is that Mormons believe that Jesus Christ personifies the God, whereas Catholics believe that Trinity is the concept of God and Jesus is the messenger of the God. So there are two different philosophies or different ways of how concept of God, but both of them are Christians. Now, being Mormons in America, it's a very highly networked world of Mormons in America. They are very powerful people in every state or every office. They are well lit in terms of information, taking care of each other, as a power lobby. They work as a power lobby within America. So Republicans, by majority, they are Mormons. Third thing is about tax. Republicans want everybody to pay same tax. Whether if you are rich, you pay 30%. If you are poor, you also pay 30%. That is their philosophy towards taxation. Third thing, being religious, or fourth point, being religious, they oppose abortion as a concept. They call it pro-life. It is called pro-life movement, which is run by Republicans. And Donald Trump has openly supported pro-life supporters. It means that he opposes abortion in today's America. That is the fourth point, which is the hallmark of being a Republican. Then most important part is, they are very, very expansion oriented. It means they don't worry about loss of life in a war. They are ever ready to go to war. If you go by the history of America, right from Abraham Lincoln, who was also a Republican, he started the Civil War, and followed by other Republicans like Richard Nixon, who started Vietnam War, George Bush Senior, Gulf War I, George Bush II, Gulf War II, Ronald Reagan, he almost started Star War. He wanted to fight the war from the cosmos. He created such a huge budget for systems to be created so that the war will be fought between the nations at cosmic level. No, he created so much of a system as a policy. Then so these are all people who are not fearful of war, because they believe that expansionism is a progress, is an indication of progress, that if you are expanding your territory, it means you are progressing. That is what they believe. So that is the hallmark of being Republican. And a tongue-in-cheek, you know, part of being Republican is that they marry their high school sweethearts. It has been a hallmark of Republicans. If you look at George Bush Senior, George Bush Junior, Dick Cheney, who was a vice president, they've all married their girlfriends or high school girlfriends or high school sweethearts. And other thing is that they have had a very long, happy married life. George Bush Senior, George Bush Junior, even Ronald Reagan, they lived very happily. And they don't divorce. Morning marriage and evening divorce. That is not how they operate. That is what Republicans are. I will now come to Democrats. Democrats, how they differ on same points, one-to-one comparison. Democrats are not a very religious people. They don't follow. They are not atheist, but they are not either. They are not very religious types. So they are a borderline case. Democrats also oppose gun control. They vouch gun control. They oppose the right to bear arm 24 hours. The third point is about abortion law. Democrats believe that abortion is a right that one should have to abort the child, and they have been trying consistently to bring this law. The fourth is about war. They are not very aggressive in terms of war. They are very passive as a policy in terms of going to war. No boot on the ground is the policy of Democrats. That they don't want their people physically present in any country. They would rather do a strategic initiative and or guide somebody, an ally, to fight with their enemy, or they might do an economic war, but no boots on the ground has been the policy of Democrats. Then tax. Democrats believe that rich people should pay more tax and middle class should pay lesser tax, and poor people should pay very less tax. That is the major difference between Republicans and Democrats. And about marriage, they believe in marriage. It's not the case that they don't believe in marriage as an institution, but they prefer live-in relationship compared to Republicans. I'm not saying this is a hard and fast rule that they follow, but this has been the majority of them do that. I mean, this is what they prefer as a way of life. And now coming to the common points, which are the common points to both before I conclude this episode. Both Democrats and Republicans, they both favor the Wall Street. They do not do anything which will go against Wall Street. They do all the rules, regulations, laws, provisions which will favor the Wall Street. And the common man now, Occupy Wall Street movement, which has started in America last 3 years, is the anger being shown against both the parties, that both of you are doing nothing to protect interests of a common man, and you are only favoring Wall Street. There has been a concern by a normal American man or normal American public. Secondly, both of them, Democrats as well as Republicans, they are obliged in every way to the pharma lobby in America. What it means is that they do not do anything which will harm the interest of pharmaceutical giants. They are just, they are obliged, and they do all sort of favors to pharma companies in every possible way. And they take a lot of donations, funds for party, funds for running the campaigns, both of them, both parties. This is a third common point. And lastly, the other point which is common to both of them, both the parties, are that they look at outside world with the same set of, you know, approach. They approach outside worlds in a similar way in terms of foreign policy, in terms of, you know, who are their friends and who are not their friends. They approach it in a more or less similar manner. And so these are the differences between Democrat and Republicans. Now coming to the presidential election, I will cover that in the second part, which because in that part the electoral process is the most difficult part, and it will take a lot of time to understand. So I want to desiccate it into the at very micro level, but that I will cover in the second part. Thank you.